Hi there, welcome to Yoga with Anne. Thank you for joining me. I have been wanting to record some sessions for you all for some time, but life gets in the way, so now I have some time. I am basically over my cold and cough that's been lingering for some time. I have a great doctor who's figured out some medication to help me to control my cough. So now I can record yoga for you. I couldn't do it before, it was too much coughing. I was in pain and it was miserable, and it wouldn't be fun for you to try to do yoga with that cough. So here we go. Just a reminder to you all, as we're in this weird time of uncharted waters, to be kind to yourself. Do yoga when you want, meditate, take a walk, whatever it is that you need to do. You can always do part of my videos. I have several videos already on my YouTube channel. You could just do the beginning of this session that's going to be on the floor. You can do whatever parts work for you. The main thing is to honor yourself and what's happening with you right now, which is very different than our regular lives. So remember that. Honoring your body is meant for many things. Physical issues, just it not feeling right now. So I really want you to honor your body. I give modifications, I give adjustments. I can't really, I guess, do adjustments here, but I try to have an idea of what may be happening in your body, and if I don't address something, you can always comment down below or follow me on one of my social medias. A reminder that I do my yoga videos for free, but there are a lot of teachers out there right now who are streaming their classes. I just did a class not too long ago with one of my yoga teachers streaming. I've kept up my yoga membership to support the teachers and also to support the studio. So if that's something that you can afford, I encourage you to keep paying your teachers, keep paying your studios to help support those small businesses, not just for yoga studios, but whatever is in your life that you need to continue to support. A reminder again about honoring your body. You can come into child's pose at any time. And just to really do what you need to do now. I'm so glad that you're here with me. This was a request from one of my Portland yoga students. She asked for some work with the legs. So this is a well-rounded practice. You'll get a little bit of everything, but I know maybe some of you are not moving as much because you're working from home, or maybe you're moving more because you're taking walks with your dogs or walks around your neighborhood, whatever that may be. So know that you will benefit from this practice no matter what is happening for you right now. I typically like to teach with props. I realize that many people don't have their own props. So if you have props, I encourage you to have 2 blocks, a yoga strap, and as many blankets as you might have. So I do have specific yoga blankets. I also have bolsters. I have everything, you know, of course. And you may have some of the things or really not anything. So if you don't have anything, there's things that you can use in your own house that will work as props. So for blocks, you can use books. For blanket, I encourage beach towels or bath towels because they're big, they're thick, they'll work. And then for the yoga strap, you could use the belt from your robe or even a necktie. So any of those things will work. I will teach things sometimes like yoga block's really going to be best for something and the book may not work as well. And so I'll also teach without any props that you can use your own body as your own prop. So I'm going to move back to start our practice. We are going to start in a meditation. I encourage you to come into a comfortable place for you. I like to start my meditation lying down. You may prefer to be seated, so that's up to you. Make sure that you're supported. If you're new to yoga, a lot of the stuff is going to be new. So just be really mindful of what's happening in your body. If it doesn't feel okay, then don't do it. Make an adjustment, change it. So I'm going to move back. I'm going to bring my props with me, my 2 blocks, my strap, and my blanket. So the thing with the blanket is I already have it folded, but it's nicely folded that I can also use it for a pillow. And when I lie down on my mat, I like to have support for almost every pose. There's some poses we don't use a blanket, but for most of them you can use a blanket under your head. And because many of us are kind of hunched forward, so when we lie down, we're not really comfortable and we can't relax our shoulders and our neck and our head. So with support, that will typically allow you to relax. If you decide to stay seated, take your support. You can come into a cross-legged position, have your legs out in front of you, have your knees bent. But if you sit on the edge of a blanket, it tilts your pelvis slightly forward and then allows you to elongate your spine, to sit tall, to sit well, to sit comfortable. So I'm going to come to lie down. So you either lie down or stay seated. I like to start with my knees bent, my feet on my mat. So place your feet about hip distance apart, a little bit in front of your knees. You may have to adjust your hips, your shoulders, your arms. Place your hands wherever is comfortable, whether that's on your belly, your chest, down by your sides. You find the right space for you. If it's comfortable for you, close your eyes. If that's not comfortable, then have a slight gaze. And here you're just going to start to bring attention to your breath. You're not going to change it. You're not going to alter it in any way. Just notice as you take in your inhale and you release your exhale. Keeping that nice rhythm. As you lie here, keeping your attention on your breath, you may start to notice that your breath slows down, it gets deeper, it gets longer. You may have noticed that your mind started to think about something, whether it's something you have to do later, something that's already happened, something you're worrying about. Whenever that happens, thank that thought for reminding you to come back to being present. Being present right now, I know is difficult, but it's important. So right now, your only goal is to be here and breathe, to be comfortable on your mat and breathe, to listen to me guide you through your breath practice and then through your asana practice. As you take in your next inhale, feel your belly rise, your ribs widen, your chest lift. And as you exhale, feel your chest soften, your ribs get closer together, your belly slightly fall. If your eyes are closed, open them. Make a little movement with your fingers and your toes. Move your head side to side. Bring your arms down by your sides. If it's still more comfortable to keep them on your torso, then you're welcome to do that. We're going to come into what's called a pelvic tilt. So if you know cat-cow, it's like cat-cow, but you're on your back. And it's a movement in your pelvis. And so you're going to tip your pelvis forward and back, up and down. So as you exhale, you're going to start to hollow out your belly. You're going to try to bring your low back to the mat. So start to spread your low back as your belly hollows. And then when you inhale, you're going to reverse and you're going to arch it. So you're just tucking and tilting ever so slightly. You go at the pace that's best for you. I like to move to my breath. So as I exhale, I come into the cat, spreading my low back. As I inhale, I arch my back, lifting. So you're coming into a heart opener. Do 2 more of those. So if it helps you to have your hands on your belly to feel that movement or on your hips, you're welcome to do that. And then finish up that last round. And come back to what feels neutral for you. And then hug your right knee into your chest. And you can just stay here for a breath or 2. Then you're going to bring your hands to the back of your thigh and you're going to extend your leg and foot up toward the ceiling. And have your hands wherever is comfortable for you. Now let's do some movement for those feet, toes, ankle. So start to point your toes and then flex. And if this flexing position doesn't feel good for you because you have sciatica or other back issues, then press more through the ball of your foot than your heel. You're the judge of that in your own body. 1 more, pointing and flexing. And then circle your foot in one direction 4 times. And once you've done 4, circle the other direction 4 times. And once that's complete, come back to center. And then you're going to spread your toes as much as you can, like your fingers, and then scrunch your toes. And then spread again, and scrunch. 2 more. And for some of us, our toes are not going to move very much at all, and that's okay. Once that's complete, come back, and then hug your knee in. Set your foot down. Hug your left knee into your chest. Breath or 2 here. And then bring your hands behind your thigh or wherever's comfortable for you and extend your leg up. As tall and long as you can. For most of us, we're not going to be able to have a straight leg. And then you'll start that action again, pointing and flexing. We're going to do about 4 rounds or 4 sets in each round. Sometimes I lose count. That's me reminding myself of not being present. And then circle in one direction. Circle 4 times in the other direction. Spread your toes, scrunch your toes. Sometimes these things will also cause foot cramps. So if it's not that bad, maybe you push through it. If you need to stop, massage your foot, or do something else, then you do that. Hug your knee back into your chest. Set your foot back down on the mat. So coming back to that neutral position. Again, hug your right knee into your chest. Flex your foot, and then bring your ankle over your opposite knee. So you want to keep your foot flexed. And then you're going to take your right hand and you're going to press your right hand into your right thigh. So not on the knee, but on the thigh to help energetically move your knee away. And then come to your breath. So notice if you were holding it, if it seemed delayed or not quite smooth. So sometimes your breath tells you you've gone too far. So maybe you try something, you're like, oh, that's too much, and you let go a little bit and your breath flows better. That might be where you need to be today. Hug your knee back into your chest. Set your foot down. Hug your left knee into your chest. Flex your foot, and then bring your ankle across your knee. Again, taking your left hand to press into your left thigh. If that's too much, you don't have to do it. Sometimes our arms don't quite reach. If your block is readily available, you could take your block and press it into your hand, or press your hand into the block that presses into your thigh. Notice if you're holding your breath. I realize I was. Release. Hug your knee back into your chest. Bring your foot back to your mat. I realized I did not have my strap ready. So sometimes people like do something weird like this or try to get the strap like this, and you don't want to do that. Even though that seems easier, that's when you pull muscles, that's when you take yourself out of this space you're in. So the best thing to do is to roll over to one side, use the strength of your hands and arms to come up to seated, and then get the prop you need. So I'm going to call it a strap even if you're using the belt from your robe or a necktie or something else. So we'll just call that the yoga strap. And then come to lie back down. Have your strap ready as you hug your right knee into your chest. You're going to take your strap and you're going to put it around either the ball or the arch of your foot. You get to decide. So that we did this earlier, but we used our hand as our prop, so that's something you could do again if you needed to. And extend your leg out long. Because you have a prop, if you are using one, you should be able to straighten your leg. So if you're here, then you want to move your leg forward so that you can straighten. It doesn't matter if your leg is up at a 90-degree angle. What's important is that your leg is straight. So find that spot for you, and as you hold this, you may find you need to make adjustments. I like to have one hand on each end of the strap. Your foot should be active. So again, if you have sciatica, you want to press more through the ball of your foot than your heel. But if you don't feel anything going on in your low back, then you can press through all 4 corners. Remember, you're the judge of that. Your other knee can stay bent, or you can take that leg and extend it long on the mat. If you do that, that'll intensify the stretch. So if it's too much, you bring your knee back. You also might have to adjust and move your foot away, your foot and leg away from you. If your other leg is extended, make sure it's just as active as this foot and leg. So it's not just flopping there, you're pressing through either the heel or the ball of the foot. People who have sciatica tend to just have it on one side, but that's not always the case, and we all have all kinds of issues in our bodies, so you need to be the best judge. You're going to start to bend your knee that's up and extended, hug it in, set your strap aside, and then extend your right leg alongside your left and relax your legs. And just take a moment to notice your right side and notice your left side. Notice if your right side feels longer, if you feel more relaxed, if your hip feels like it released. Just notice the difference of the two sides. Maybe you don't notice anything. Bend your knees again, bring your feet to your mat. Hug your left knee in. Lasso that foot, whether the ball or the arch. Extend up nice and tall, adjusting. This is a different side of your body. Have your foot and leg active. And then check in with your other leg. Just because you did it on the first side doesn't mean you're going to do it on the second. So check in. Decide if you're going to extend nice and long with that other leg or keep your knee bent. Adjust if you need to. Notice your breath. This pose is called Supta Padangusthasana, and I also like to call it the pose that makes you taller. So for those of us who aren't very tall, this will let you grow a little bit. You'll feel your body lengthen. It's one of my favorite poses. This pose basically works the whole lower part of your body, from your core all the way down to your toes. Check in if you're gripping onto your strap. Can you let go a little bit? My leg is shaking. Release your strap, bend your knee to hug in. Set your foot down and then extend that leg out long. And check in with both sides of your body. Bend your knees again, bring your feet to your mat. Roll over to one side. Bring yourself up slowly to seated. We're going to come into a tabletop onto all fours. For many people, being on their knees on your yoga mat or whatever surface you might be on right now might not be comfortable. Blocks, bring those to the top of your mat, kind of on the side, but have them readily available. So I don't typically need padding for my knees, but if I were going to use it, I'd unfold my blanket once, have my knees on my blanket to come into a tabletop. So here we're on our hands and wrists. You have your knees right below, you should have your knees right below your hips. Typically in this pose, we teach it with wrists right below shoulders. But for many people, that's an issue. I have tendonitis in this wrist, and so sometimes it doesn't like that 90-degree angle. So maybe just moving your hands a little forward will help to alleviate that. Some people will come onto forearms. If you have blocks, you can put them in the medium height and be here, nice and active. So you don't want to just like hang out. You need to be just as active if you were on your hands. So there's many options should you need them. Spread your fingers wide, adjust your hands, so you might find you need to move them one way or the other. Maybe have your hands wider. Spread your fingers wide so all of your fingers are pressing in the mat. Your palms, the top, the bottom, your thumbs, your pinkies. And then we're going to do cat-cow like we did the pelvic tilt. So when you exhale, start to round your low back, hollow out your belly, coming into that cat. And when you inhale, reverse it. Start to lift your pelvis. So the pelvis is doing the movement first. Head and neck follow last. We like to pull our head and neck up. So see if that can follow. So you change the movement with your breath. You start in the pelvis, you move up the back, the shoulders, the neck, and then the head. Inhaling, opening up. This is a heart opener here. And as you exhale, You're closing a little bit. Do one more round. Inhale up. Exhale. Come back to neutral tabletop. So something I noticed in a lot of my students, myself included, there were hyperextenders in our elbows. So it's hard to see from the angle I was at, and I have a wall behind me, or really a closet behind me. But when I come into a tabletop, my elbow, I call these elbow pits, they go forward, and really your elbow pits should be looking at each other or toward each other. So if you just let yourself hyperextend, if you're a hyperextender, you may not be, you're not protecting that joint, and that's when that can cause issues. And so we need to keep it active. It makes it more difficult. So even if you're not a hyperextender, from where your hands are, you're not going to move them, but imagine you're going to bring your thumbs closer to each other. And you may start to notice that your elbow pits move more to look toward each other. And if you need a little more, then imagine you're going to bring your forearms toward each other. And then you can even imagine you bring your biceps toward each other. And you'll actually feel other action in your body as well. Do just 2 rounds of cat-cow there. Going with your breath. Remembering not to just flip your head and neck up, let it follow. See, even I still do it. I don't even realize. All right, so from here, you're going to make your way into a downward facing dog. If you think that's too much for your wrists, your shoulders, any other part of your body, you could come into a child's pose. You could come into what's called puppy, where your hands go slightly forward and you shift your hips back. You could stay in your tabletop. You also have the option to come to your forearms. So if you do that, make sure that your shoulders are right above your elbows. You can interlace your fingers. For your dog, step your hands 1 handprint forward from where they were. Curl your toes under, and you're going to start to lift your knees up off your mat, moving your butt, hip, and thighs toward the wall behind you. You're bringing your body into a nice, long, inverted V. So have your fingers spread wide, your ears between your upper arms. You're pressing your heels down toward the mat, but they don't need to touch. Slightly bend your knees. Then keep your knees bent as you move your hips back more. Press your thighs toward the wall behind you. So make sure that you're not more forward and rounded. You're lengthening your spine, so having your knees bent helps with that. Bring your knees down to your mat, coming back to your tabletop. This is when we're going to use our blocks, so you can make sure that your blocks are ready. Starting at the highest height is always nice. You can have your books here or also instruct without. Step your right foot forward. You're going to come into a low lunge. So you may want padding under your back knee. You want to make sure that your front knee does not go forward of your ankle. So this is not a safe lunge. You'll hurt your knee here. So you need to crawl your toes forward, and you just got to pick that foot up and move it forward. Your knee can be behind your ankle, but not forward of it. Blocks are nice because they help you to be long and open. Sometimes when we're trying to be down here, it's hard to breathe. We're trying to be like those pretty pictures we see on Instagram and other publications of yoga pictures that maybe are not realistic for your body. If you don't have blocks or the books aren't working for you, you also have the option of bringing your hands to your thigh. That even brings you up a little higher. You're pressing through all 4 corners of your foot. So imagine your foot is a car and you've got wheels, and you need to evenly press through all 4 wheels. And then we're going to do a little bit of movement here. We're going to do it with our breath. So when you exhale, you're going to start to straighten your leg and shift your body back slightly. You can keep your whole foot on the mat, or you can lift your toes up. And then when you inhale, start to bring your foot back to the mat if you lifted it, and your knee back over your heel. Exhale, do it again. So if you're lifting your foot, keep it active. Inhale, come back. Do 2 more of those. Stretching those calf muscles, the shin muscles, even your feet. 1 more. Come back for a moment. I didn't mention the back foot. I like to have my toes curled under. I think it's a personal preference. I've had many conversations about this. One of my good friends who's a yoga teacher, we've talked about it in the past, and she believes that this helps to keep your knees safer. So I think that's an interesting idea. I like that. I also feel like I'm a little bit more balanced. So bring your left foot and knee, or excuse me, right foot knee back and left one forward. And if you did the other way, then just step your other foot forward. So get your foot in place. Decide if this back foot's going to be curled under or not. Spread your toes on your mat. Press through all four corners. Have your hands in the appropriate spot for you. We'll start that movement again. So the next time you exhale, start to straighten your leg. You decide to keep your toes and foot on the mat, or you start to lift, keeping your heel on the mat. Try to keep your back as long as possible. When you inhale, you come back into the lunge. When you exhale, you come into half Hanumanasana, half split pose. Do that 2 more times. And you go to your own breath, so it's going to be different than mine. So if you're a little bit off, it's no big deal. I go fairly slow. If you miss something, then you skip it or you rewind. Coming back to your lunge. Have your heart open. So you don't want your shoulders up by your ears. So imagine that you bring your shoulder blades down onto your rib cage. And then you'll come back to your tabletop. Set your blocks off to your side. You're going to come back into your version of downward facing dog. Make sure your fingers are spread even and wide. Curl your toes under. Lift up, lengthening your spine, bending your knees. And here, if you'd like, you could do a yoga walk. You could walk your dog, bending one knee and then the other. And go slow. Move to your breath. So pumping like this, I don't really feel anything. But if I take my time, the leg that's straight, I can really feel those muscles getting stretched, nice and long. If you're walking your dog, come back to stillness. And then we're going to come into a forward fold. So you can walk your hands to your feet to your hands, or a combination of the two. I like to do a little bit of both. You likely won't have props nearby depending on how you stepped. So if you're like really hunched to get your hands to the mat, bring your hands to your thighs, to your hips. I want your back as long as it can be. You can bend your knees a little bit, but we want to have length here, length in the spine. So there's nothing wrong with doing a forward fold right here. And then if your hands are not at your hips, you're going to bring your hands to your hips. You're going to imagine you're lifting yourself up from your belly button so you stay nice and long, and you lift up to standing. Whew. I did that yoga class earlier today, but I haven't done a whole lot of yoga or working out because of this cough. So I'm feeling it a little bit. So if you're feeling a little winded, totally awesome. And if you're not, totally awesome as well. So coming into Tadasana, the base of our standing poses. So place your feet hip distance apart. And you start by figuring that out by finding the bony protrusions here from your hips. And if you could draw a line down your legs, the line would go right through the middle of your ankles. That's hip distance apart. For most of us, it's a pretty good spot to be, but some of you may find you need wider or closer. I want you to feel that you can ground all 4 corners of your feet into the mat, that you can lift from your belly, reach from the crown of your head toward the ceiling, and have your arms just by your sides. Again, this is an easy one for hyperextenders, so really think about pressing in, activating your thighs, and then lifting. And then turn your hands so that they're facing forward. This helps to open your chest, moves your shoulder blades, opens your shoulders. And then from here, you're going to bring your hands behind your back and you're going to interlace. And you may want to just keep your hands resting here. I'm going to do this from behind so that you can see what I'm doing back here. You can keep your hands right here. Bring your shoulders about an inch toward your ears and then behind you to open up. So we're doing a little bit of a back bend. You may want to lift your hands off your small back and lift from your heart. So I'll turn so that you can see me from the side, lifting from your heart. So don't like do this to come into a back bend. So for most of us, we're not going to move very much. back upright, release, give it a good shake. Step your feet wide. Rotate your right foot and leg 90 degrees. I'm going to move this block so that's out of the way. Your back foot's going to kick in just about an inch. So your heel goes out, your toes go in. And then you're going to bend your front knee, not going past your ankle. So make sure it's right over your ankle. And then it's really easy in this pose for your knee to fall in. We don't want that to happen because then the knee's not tracking over the heel anymore, right? So externally rotate your thigh. Imagine that you're moving your knee between your second and third toe. And then bring your hands on your mid-ribs. So your hips will be they won't be square to the long edge of your mat. There's a little bit of a not square movement. But this part of your body, as best as it can, will turn toward the long edge of your mat. So your heart's facing that way. And then you start to reach your arms up to shoulder height. You decide if your gaze is toward your front middle finger, forward, or to your back hand. Sometimes you want to look at that back hand because it can be doing weird things. I can see myself right now, so I know that pretty straight line here. But sometimes shoulders have issues, so I call this sassy warrior. You could have maybe one of your wings. You're always welcome to do that. Make adjustments so that your shoulders feel okay. Bring your arms down, straighten your front leg, parallel your feet, and go to the second side. So rotate your left foot and leg 90 degrees, kick your back heel back, toes slightly in, press through all four corners, start to bend your knee. Check in here that your knee's not falling in. Hands on your mid-ribs, reaching to your warrior two. Feel the flow of your breath. You're lifting from your belly, reaching through the crown of your head, reaching from your shoulder blades out through your fingertips. There's a lot of reaching, pressing through your feet and your mat. Lots of action, lots of lines of energy in this pose. Bring your arms down, straighten your front leg, parallel your feet. This time you're going to turn your toes out slightly. And then you're going to bend your knees, and you don't want to stick your butt back. It's like you're going to sit down. So you might have to adjust your feet, your stance, externally rotating those thighs. So again, we don't want them falling in. So you're working as best you can. It's not quite like warrior two with your knees over your thighs toward your toes. You might feel your thighs burning. Good. Goddess. Breathe. Bring your hands to your thighs. This is called horse stance. So you can really press your hands into your thighs, but don't let your shoulders come up to your ears, so keep your chest open, your shoulders down. And then you're going to lift one heel up and set it down. Other heel, down, again. Keeping your knees in a good safe spot. Do that 2 more times each side. I think I did it 2 more times. See, I wasn't paying attention. All right, stand on up, parallel your feet, step them back together into your Tadasana. Taking a moment here. Pick up all your toes, spread them wide, and then place them back on your mat. Just notice how maybe that changed your Tadasana for a moment. We're going to come into our balance pose. So if you know that you need support, you need a wall, you need something in the room where you are, you're welcome to move there. If you happen to have hardwood floors in your house, sometimes it's nicer to be on that than your yoga mat. So you decide. So we want to have a really good connection with our feet. So you may want to raise your toes in, spread them, feel that connection, and then just ever so slightly you're going to lean over to your right foot and you're going to bend your left knee. You're going to turn your toes out, and then you're going to bring your foot to your leg. This could be your tree pose right here. You want to keep your hips forward. You could bring your foot to your shin, never on your knee, or you can bring your foot to your thigh. So if you're here but you're wonky, or here, it's not worth it. So find a spot where your hips are square forward, you feel grounded, you feel rooted. So you want to press through that standing foot and leg, create that lift in your belly once again, your chest is open. Your hands can be wherever you'd like. They could stay at your hips, out to the side, namaste hands. You could reach up. You decide what kind of tree you want to be today. And make sure you're breathing. You lock your gaze on something in the room that's not moving. So if you're doing yoga with someone else, or if there's a pet in the room, perhaps look somewhere else. Focus your gaze. Keep that lift. Keep that grounding. And then give it release and give it a shake. And we'll go to the second side. So find that root. The feet are the roots of your body for our tree pose and for many other poses. So feel that connection. Slight lean, so we're not like leaning out over here or anything like this. Ooh, I'm gonna fall over. So just a slight, like more of your weight's going onto your left side as you bend your right knee and turn your toes out. This side's different, so find the best spot for you. Keep your hips forward, lift through your belly, have your gaze locked on something, decide where your hands are gonna go. And as many of my former regular students know the joke, perhaps today is a windy day for your tree. If you're just having a tough time with balance, maybe your tree has root rot. Wherever you are, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Those muscles are moving. That means that they're working. They're working hard to keep you long, to keep you grounded, upright, and rooted. Check in with your breath. Make sure you're not holding it. We tend to hold it when we do balance work. Release your foot, release your arms, give it a shake. Awesome. We're going to come back down and have a seat. So get your blanket and have a seat on it again. Sitting at the edge. So it allows you, I'm like at the very edge of my blanket. So I almost feel like I'm falling off of my blanket. That helps you to tip forward. I'm just going to move back a little bit so that you can see me better. Nice and tall here. Feet together, knees out to the sides. That could look very different for everybody. If it's too much for you to have your feet touch, then don't have them touch. But I want you to be nice and tall here. So if you find that your knees are way up here, move your feet more forward. Baddha Konasana. You can do this pose lying down as well. Bring your hands on the outside of the knees, closing them like a book. And you're going to come to lie down again. So have, if you're using a blanket on your head as a pillow, have that. Have a block. So here, if you don't have a block or a book, a blanket can work. So if you're using a blanket on your head, eventually we're going to move it so you could use that. Something that's going to go under you for our supported bridge in a moment. So come to lie down on your mat. Hug your knees into your chest, and perhaps you want a little rock or just hold them in. And we're going to come into a reclined twist. So you may find for your body it's better to have your feet down and then move your knees to the side. You may find that you want to have your knees hugged in and move your knees over to one side. Hands go wherever you want, wherever's comfortable. On your chest, on your knees, out to the side. So basically your knees are going in one direction and your heart's going up toward the ceiling. You can decide which way your head and neck go. I prefer looking up toward the ceiling. Bring your knees back to center. I have to adjust so that I don't crash into my closet doors. So either keep your feet on your mat or hug in and then roll over to the other side, bringing your knees to rest, allowing your chest to open, not forcing anything down. So if you feel like you're pressing your shoulder too much, make an adjustment. You could do that baby wing again. Bring your arm back closer to your side. Hug your knees back into your chest. Rock a little bit. Set your feet down. Just take a moment here. And from here, we're going to work our way into a supported bridge pose. So no blanket under the head. If you really need support under your head, you need to have a thin amount of blanket and not under your neck. Because when we come into bridge, we want to keep the natural curve of our necks. So I'm going to move my blanket. You may end up using yours as your support. Start in that Constructive rest with your knees bent, your feet on the mat, your feet are placed hip distance apart. Have your prop, whatever it might be. Press all four corners of both feet into your mat and lift your hips up just enough to slide your support under your body. So you want to make sure that it's not under your low back. Right now I have my block under my low back and does not feel good. So you want it lower. You want it at your sacrum, at your pelvis. So below that lumbar curve. Hands again wherever is comfortable. This is where you want to make sure that your neck is clear of a blanket. So if you are still using one, adjust it or make the blanket thinner or move it. This is one of my favorite poses. This is a heart opener. It's a slight inversion as your head is below your heart. It's a restorative pose. This is a pose you could do on your own. Set your timer. Hold it for 5 minutes or whatever works for you. If you hold it for a period of time, you could step your feet wide and have your knees come in toward each other. Because I find that when I get really relaxed in this pose, my knees start to move around. And from here, you're going to press your feet back into your mat, lift your hips up, slide your support out of the way, one vertebrae at a time as you bring your hips back down to your mat. Again, taking a moment just to feel what's happened, what's happening now, where you are with your breath, with your body, with your mind. Roll over to one side. Press yourself up to seated. So we're going to set up for Shavasana, final pose, your final relaxation pose. I'm going to show you the way I like to set it up. We're going to hold this in this recording for probably about 2 minutes. Shavasana is great for 5, 10, 15 minutes. So you could do this setup with me. You could pause and then set your timer to do for however long of a Shavasana you'd like. That's up to you. I won't hold the video for that long, but that's what I recommend. So I like to have support under my knees. I have a bolster, so that's easy for me to do. If you don't have a bolster, maybe you have blocks, and you could put a blanket over that and use it the same way. You could use a rolled blanket. It will totally work for a makeshift bolster. I like to have a blanket under my head as a pillow. If I were holding a long Shavasana, I would put socks on, I'd put my sweater on, I'd have a blanket on me. Typically, your body temperature will drop when you do a restorative pose, and this is a restorative pose. So you want to be comfortable. You can't be comfortable if you're cold. You can't relax if you're cold. So think about those things. What would make the ultimate Shavasana for you? And then I've draped my legs over my bolster. So make adjustments. Don't just let it be just because that's where it already is. Make sure that you give yourself the best support. And come to lie down. So as you lie down, you may notice that something's not quite in the right place. So adjust it. Shift shoulders, your hips, your feet, your knees, whatever needs to be shifted so that you can relax. You can't relax if you're uncomfortable, if you're uneven, if you're cold. So we want to give ourselves the best support we can. Give yourself the best support you can. And even if your mind is wandering, that's okay. You're still doing really great things for your body right now. Reminding yourself to come back to your breath every single time you find yourself wandering away, no longer being present. So just for a few moments, bring focus to your breath. But typically in Shavasana, we let all of that go. Excuse me. And just feel your inhale and exhale moving as they are naturally doing your natural breath. This is a time that you could pause, set your timer. Notice if you're holding on to something that you no longer need to, let go, release. breath. Taking a fuller, longer, deeper inhale. And release your exhale. Start to move your fingers and your toes, your hands and your feet, wrists and your ankles. Maybe you want to stretch or move your head side to side, hug your knees in, whatever feels good for you. Eventually you'll make your way over to one side and stay there for a breath or two. To get yourself up, press your hands to help lift you, bringing your head up last. And bring yourself into a seated position. So again, sitting on something that's going to give you the best seat so that you can sit well. Cross-legged, legs out long, whatever's comfortable for you. And I started seated like this. So I'm going to switch and have my other leg in front. Sit well, sit tall, close your eyes or soften your gaze. Bring your hands together at heart center in Anjali Mudra. Pressing your left hand into your right as much as you press your right hand into your left. Slightly pressing your thumbs onto your heart center. Keep peace in your mind. Keep strength in your body. And keep love in your heart. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. If you have any questions or comments, you can do that below on my YouTube channel. You can find me on all the social medias, Facebook and Twitter. I'm GoFitGirl. On Instagram, I'm The Real GoFit Girl. And my email is therealgofitgirl@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to do more of these. I do have a regular job, so I'm not free and easy as some people have had a lot of time on their hands. I know you're needing yoga and things to keep you occupied, so please visit my other videos on my YouTube channel. Let me know if you'd like to see something else. And thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to practice with me. Have a lovely day, and I hope to see and hear from you soon. Thanks.